Hi guys, it's Brooke Bowen, and I'm going to do a little video talking about some standards, especially the standards that my school uses. So sorry that I look like this. It has been a crazy week. It was our first full week back at school, and along with being a science teacher, teaching 4 different subjects, I am also the school guidance counselor and our accreditation coordinator for this year. So I've been trying to get used to these new positions and trying to figure everything out. I've also been moving into my new apartment, which I'll go ahead and let you guys take a look out the window. Yeah, so I'm just trying to get everything organized, so it's been a rough week. But we're here now, and I'm ready to talk about the standards that my school has. So at my school, the standards that we use to talk to, see what we're supposed to be teaching our students are called GLEs, and that stands for Grade Learning Expectations. And basically, I'm not too sure about how other standards are because I didn't go to college for education, and so I've never really looked at other standards. But ours, at least for science, there's a big statement. Here, I'll give you an example. So for life science, the first standard is individual organisms with certain traits are more likely than others to survive and have offspring in a specific environment. And so, that's not a question. It's just a statement of fact that that our students should know. And then underneath that are some students will be able to statements that help you know what your student should be exhibiting to show that they've learned this statement. So for that one that I just said, the different students will be able to statements are A, explain the role of genes and chromosomes in the process of inheriting a specific trait. B, compare and contrast organisms that reproduce asexually and sexually. And C, recognize that selective breeding can produce plants or animals with desired traits. Now, each one of those it's got a lot of stuff in it, yeah. And so I did go ahead and unpack all of them for my life science class, and only my life science class because, listen, I teach life science, physical science, chemistry, biology, pre-algebra, physiology, and anatomy, and there's a whole bunch of statements for all of them, and I just did not have the time to unpack every single one. So I did all of them for life science, and I have a link to it if you want to look at how I unpack them, but yeah. So I chose a standard because life science is the one subject that I teach every year. I always teach it to 6th grade, always. My other sciences switch back and forth. But this one I know very well. I teach it every year. This is my 3rd year teaching it, and I wanted to take, I've seen the standards before, but I wanted to take a little closer look at them and unpack it a little bit so I could be making sure that I'm teaching it the best that I can. So I think the one that I posted in the cohort was Life Science Standard 3, and it says that cells are the smallest unit of life that can function independently and perform all the necessary functions of life. So this is actually what I'm teaching right now in life science. We always we always start with cells because that's the smallest unit of life. It's life science. Everything is going to build up from there. So right now we're talking about, we talked about the characteristics of life, the 4 macromolecules that help cells to function, and now we're getting into the parts of cells, which will lead into what the functions of cells are. So yeah, that's the one that I posted. For this one, what I usually like to do, because it's really hard, all of my students are ELLs. There's not a single one of my students who is a native English speaker. And this year in my life science class, I have a student with auditory processing disorder. And so it's really difficult to teach these things. I mean, we're learning words like carbohydrates and lipids and proteins and nucleic acid. And it's a little difficult to understand what these things are, especially because we can't see them. It's not a concrete thing that we can look at. And so I like to do activities with them just because it helps it to be a little bit more interesting and a little bit more understandable. This year, one activity that I did was doing a demonstration of the different macromolecules by making peanut butter with them in class. And so the sugar was a carbohydrate, the protein was the peanuts, and like each one of the peanuts was an amino acid and had to be in a chain. The oil was the lipid, and then the food processor was the nucleic acid, because peanut butter doesn't know how to be peanut butter without the processor telling it what to do, just like the cell doesn't know how to be a cell without nucleic acids telling it what to do. And so we did this together, and like the whole time I was like, okay, what does this stand for? If we just have one peanut, is that a protein yet? Okay, what do we need to do to make it a protein? Okay, if we have just one sugar, is that simple or is that complicated? If we make a chain, is that simple or is it complicated? Is it complex? So I was asking questions the whole time, asking them like, let's review, because it is a hard concept to get. The big project that I do with this every year is I have them go home and create a 3D model of a cell. And they have to like label every part, and like that's part of the grade. They get instructions in a rubric so they know exactly what they need to do. And then after that, they come in and I will say, okay, so I want you to explain the endoplasmic reticulum. I want you to explain the Golgi apparatus. I want you to explain the mitochondria and like what they do. And then they'll stand up in the class, say, this is my model, these are the parts, this is what I'm going to explain, and explain what the job of that organelle is, just so I can see that they're doing it. One thing that I want to add this year is a reflection paper, so I can see, like, what did you look at? Did you look at the textbook, or did you look online to see how to make a model? Or, yeah, just things like that. Like, and what did you learn from this? Was this helpful to you? Because I want to know, like, is this something I should continue doing? Was it something that was helpful to my students? So that's that. How I will assess mastery. So through formative assessments, I check for, okay, are you getting it the first time I asked you, or do I have to give you a hint? Is the whole class answering me, or do I have some students who are silent? If I ask you individually, will you be able to tell me? That's how I do it formatively. For the summative, number one, I'll check and see that all of the parts are labeled correctly, that they can tell me what they are and what they do, and then when they tell the class, then if that explanation is correct, then I'll count it as mastery. If it's incorrect, then I won't. I also usually do a summative exam at the end of every unit just to see how people are doing, because like with life science, everything is building on top of each other. Like the first unit is cells and their parts, and then like cell transportation. Next unit is going to be cell division and like making proteins, which is all based on the cell organelles and like macromolecules. If we don't understand that, if we don't understand unit 1, we will not understand anything else, because we're going to build up from cells the entire year. So it's very, very, very important to know like what's going on at this level. So I'm very serious about checking for mastery at this point and like seeing what's going on. Okay, so I ran a little bit over time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there, but thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, just like always, just leave a comment and I will get back to you. I'm good with answering questions. If there's something that I said wrong, please correct me so that I can learn and get better at this. So thank you. Bye.